Hey friends, welcome back to the channel. So designing a website or a mobile app used to take me hours, and it all consisted of grabbing an image or a text tool or any type of component and dragging it onto the artboard. Now, a lot of time was spent with alignment, spacing, and margin. This standard design process took me hours, and at some point I was like, you know what, there must be a better way of doing this. And so came auto layout in Figma. Now, auto layout is a complete game changer, and what it did is it actually slashed my design time in half, and it actually allowed me to be more creative. Now, with that said, I am super amped to share 7 must-know tips when working with auto layout. Like I said, it's a huge game changer. You don't want to miss it. And looking at these 7 must-know tips, it's really going to take your design to the next level. I'll share a couple of secrets with you that I've gained using auto layout over the years. Okay, so point number 6 is all about development mindset, and this point alone can literally transform your entire design to development process. So make sure to stick around. Like I said, this and everything I'm sharing with you is a complete game changer, and every single point kind of work on top of each other. So make sure to stick around. Hey, just a quick thing before we jump into it. Make sure to smash that like and subscribe button if you like my content, and leave a comment. I would love to know your feedback. I post videos like this, web design, web development, and anything in between on a weekly, monthly, and even daily basis. And by the way, I have a link down below if you want to design a website from start to finish using Figma and using auto layout. On top of that, I also have a link to how to develop that entire website from start to finish. And I actually have the entire design on the Figma community as well, so which means you can literally just duplicate it and use it if you want. Okay, so the first point is effortless alignment and spacing. Now, before auto layout existed in Figma, we normally, like I said earlier, took a rectangle or an image or a text tool and we literally dragged it onto the artboard. Now, there was a lot of effort or time spent in making sure that alignment and spacing and margins were all correct. And trust me, this took a lot of time. Like, I always felt like my entire design existed in making sure that alignment and spacing is correct. Now, when you use auto layout, and if you use auto layout correctly, you kind of eliminate this problem. You kind of get rid of that problem. Why? Well, the key thing is you can literally take all of your elements or your components, which is a text tool, a rectangle tool, or an image, and you can group it together and activate auto layout. Once activated, you can modify its settings to make sure that the alignment and spacing is 100%. Okay, so the second point is speedy design process. Because we don't need to worry about spacing and alignments and gaps and all that kind of stuff, we can literally slash our entire design time in half. So normally where it took me hours to put together a tile or put together a card, now it literally just takes me minutes. Why? Because I'm using auto layout and I'm using its nest features to group together all the elements into a group or into a frame. Okay, so the third reason is consistency across the board. So when I say consistency, one of the important things of being a designer is to make sure that you are consistent. So for example, if you created a specific card or you created an accordion, you want to make sure that that is consistent. And when I say consistency, I'm talking about font size. I'm talking about spacing. I know I'm saying spacing a lot. There's a reason for that, and we'll get to it later on. Now, with that said, auto layout allows us to be consistent across the board. Now, this is super handy if you have 20 or 30 pages that you're busy designing, or you have a big project. Now, the fourth tip is scalable across all devices. Now, as a modern designer, we always want to make sure that we design something that's responsive, meaning that we are working on mobile, we're working on tablet, and we're working on desktop. Now, a lot of times people say, especially when you work with Bootstrap, they always say mobile first. So meaning you start your design with the mobile and you kind of work towards tablet and you kind of work towards desktop. My personal opinion, and doing this for quite some time, I like to do desktop first. And I know it's a little controversial, but I like to do desktop first and then move to mobile. Now, why am I saying this? Well, with auto layout, you can speed up this entire process. You don't need to duplicate and move things around and try and drag things around and change font size. You can take it from the desktop artboard and you can drop it into the mobile artboard. And the great thing about auto layout is you can now set its variables to either be hug, full, or even fixed. So this entire process makes your responsive design much, much faster. In the old days, like I said, we always had to do this all manually, but with auto layout, it's all seamless. All right, so the fifth point is flexibility with position. Now, you are going to be in situations where you do need something, or you do need a rectangle or an image to be in absolute positioning. And this is one of the frustrating parts that I had when I started with auto layout, but I figured it out. And by the way, they did a huge update on auto layout about a year or two ago, which changed the entire game. And this is much easier with the latest update with auto layout. You can take that component and you can change it by clicking on the right hand side on absolute, and you can move that about. So with that said, you have a lot of flexibility, and the great thing about it is that you can move things about on an X and Y axis. You're not necessarily conformed to the constraints of the auto layout itself. All right, so point number 6, developer's mindset. So this one is huge. This one is a big one. Now, because we are using auto layout, it's basically taking the designer into the developer's mindset. Let me explain. Usually when we designed a website or a mobile app not using auto layout, we would take a rectangle or an image or a text tool and you would drag it onto the artboard. And on the right hand side, you'll notice that we had an X and Y axis and a pixel amount, which means that that specific component is an absolute position. Now, when I say absolute position, it is a specific pixel from the top and a specific pixel from the left, the X and the Y. Now, with auto layout, we are not using absolute positioning, but we're using relative. That's why I said it is getting into the developer's mindset. Back in the old days, in the 90s, we developed websites using the absolute positioning metric. But since time moved on, mobile, tablet, and small to large laptops and desktops were invented, and we had different screen sizes. Therefore, our entire development process had to change, where we had to focus on relative positioning rather than absolute positioning. Now, with auto layout, that allows the designer to have the same mindset. Now, moving from design to development is much easier now, because now the designer has the same mindset as a developer. So the entire process is much easier. All right, so number 7 is nested auto layouts for complex structures. The nice thing about auto layout is you can follow a specific front end framework, something like Bootstrap. And the great thing is you can use its nested layers and groups and frames to be able to follow, let's say, the grid structure or the column structure of Bootstrap itself. Now, what I normally do is I like to rename my groups and I like to rename my layers to follow closely to that of Bootstrap. Again, this comes back to the entire point number 6, where the entire design to development process is much, much easier if you follow auto layout. All right, so before I share the secrets with you, just a quick thing. I have a link below of a video of how to design a website from start to finish using auto layout. I also have another video there that I show you how to then develop it, how to develop the whole thing from start to finish. It's a full course tutorial and it's easy to follow, and I try and be as descriptive as possible. Okay, so some of the secrets that I want to share with you when starting with auto layout, or even if you've been using auto layout for a while. The first one is always make sure you work from inside out. So let me explain what I mean. You always want to make sure that you start by, let's say, taking a text tool and dragging it onto the artboard, grouping it together with your layers, and then activating auto layout. If you do it the other way around, it is much more complicated. So I normally like to work from the inside out, and this process in this way has saved me a ton of hours. All right, so the second secret that I want to share with you, as I said with point number 7, you want to follow a specific framework. I normally like to use Bootstrap, and I normally like to follow Bootstrap. And when you follow a specific framework, auto layout is much, much easier. And if you combine that with working from the inside out, you are coming back to point number 6, you are in the developer's mindset. So the entire process is much, much quicker and much easier. So again, make sure to use a specific framework. All right, so the last secret based on my experience that I want to share with you is make sure that you are using hug and full when it comes to width and height. Try and avoid using fixed, because once you start moving around and once you start moving your design from a mobile to a tablet to a desktop, it will take you a lot of time to adjust your components to the screen size. Therefore, make sure that you use hug and full. All right, thanks for watching this video. Make sure to smash that like and subscribe button. I truly appreciate that. And hey, also leave a comment. I would love to know what is your experience using auto layout in Figma. And down below, I also have a couple of links that will definitely benefit you. One of those links is if you're ready to sign up for the pro account with Figma, you can get that link in the description below and sign up. Okay, so till next time.